We're hopping across the pond for the first of 6 NFL games in Europe this season. In Dublin's very own Croke Park, the Minnesota Vikings are taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. While the Steelers played a preseason game here in 1997, this will be the first ever regular season game in Ireland. Will the Steelers win again, repeating their victory over an NFC North foe like they did 28 years ago, or will the Vikings once again wreak havoc in Ireland? We'll see in the simulation, but first, let's get behind the bar and make our drink a Viking Raid.
Alright, it's our first Europe game of the 2025 season, and that means it is our first morning game as well, so I figured I'd break out some appropriate attire. Pittsburgh fans, welcome to your first primetime game. Minnesota fans, welcome back. Vikings, man, you guys are some greedy bastards. This is your third primetime game in 4 weeks. Plus, you play again next week against the Browns, which actually reminds me, when I was first making this series, the list of primetime games that I was using didn't have any of the international games on it, which is why I thought Cleveland didn't have any primetime games this year, but that's a lie. It also means that instead of the 4 I had originally planned for, Minnesota actually has 6 primetime games, so I need to come up with 2 more drinks for them, and I will be taking suggestions down in the comments. Anyways, all of that can wait until next week. For now, let's turn our attention back to Minnesota's representative this week, Aquavit. Between the high concentration of Scandinavian immigrants in Minnesota and the team literally being called the Vikings, I knew I had to get Aquavit involved at some point. Aquavit is a distilled spirit, typically around 40% ABV or 80 proof, and it has to have the main flavoring be either caraway or dill, and if you're a Swedish Aquavit, fennel. Within those constraints, however, distillers have a lot of leeway in terms of what other botanicals they add to the spirit and how they age it. So unaged Aquavit would be a clear spirit. Those that have been aged will usually turn out somewhere between sort of straw and gold color, with some adding caramel coloring to it to make it artificially darker. In the context of cocktails, you can kind of think of Aquavit as like a gin variant. You know, they're both sort of distilled spirits that have botanical notes as their main flavor profile. Gin started in the Netherlands and uses juniper berries as its main flavoring. Aquavit started in Scandinavia and then uses that caraway, fennel, dill as its main flavoring notes. This Aquavit I have here, I know I said you can use it as a gin variant, but I think if you should not just substitute it 1-for-1 with gin, because the flavor is very intense. I had a little sip of this to try it when I was, because I came up with the recipe for this drink before I had actually gotten this bottle. And oh man, this is probably the worst spirit I've ever had in my life, hands down. This isn't even like, people have talked about Baijiu being the worst. This is so much worse than Baijiu, or at least the Baijiu that I have. It's not even close. This literally, the caraway flavor on it was so strong, it felt like someone had like condensed down a loaf of that like bread into just like the most concentrated, angry, diabolical shot imaginable, and then slapped me in the face with it. So I'm a little bit scared for what our final drink is going to be like because of how strong this Aquavit is, but we'll burn that bridge when we come to it. Pittsburgh's representative can also be traced back to an immigrant community, this time the Slavic population of McKeesport, which is just up the Monongahela River from downtown Pittsburgh. The fussfungal was created sometime around the turn of the 20th century, and while there's no concrete date for it, we know it must have been invented prior to 1902 because that's when we have newspaper reports about the effects of this drink. Now, while the modern spec of the fussfungal, which is rye whiskey, brown sugar molasses syrup, and bitters, is quite similar to an old-fashioned, the major difference is that historically, this drink would have been prepared in large batches as opposed to a single cocktail. Indeed, in those newspaper reports I was talking about, the smallest unit of measurement ever used to refer to this drink is in pints. So I have to read a quote from one of these newspaper reports to you because it's just so well put together. Quote, "There's more mischief in a pint of it than a barrel of real whiskey contains. At an expense of $2, enough fussfungal has been manufactured to keep the McKeesport Police Court busy all day Monday and Tuesday, with little work left over for Wednesday. Yeah, apparently this stuff created so much havoc that it made the mayor of McKeesport get 67 guys together to swear off the drink on New Year's Day, which lasted about as long as most New Year's resolutions do. And finally, because this game is in Ireland, it would not be complete without a can of Guinness. I highly doubt anybody watching this has never heard of Guinness, but in case you're new to all of this is an Irish stout, so very dark color, creamy mouthfeel, and a surprisingly low ABV. Most of your sort of modern craft stouts are going to have ABVs, around 6 to north of 8%, whereas a Guinness is only 4.2%. It is the highest selling beer in both Ireland and the UK. A lot of very interesting history there that I'm not going to be getting into in this video. One thing I do want to talk about, however, as a data science channel, is that Guinness is where William Gossett was working when he developed the student's tea distribution and student's tea test. Student's tea distribution is a generalized form of the normal distribution that works a lot better when your sample size is smaller, and student's tea test is a method for seeing if the differences between two groups are statistically significant or not. So if you've done basically any statistics before in your life, odds are very good that you've used at least one of these two, and you have Guinness to thank for that, so I'll drink to that. All right, so this is another one of those drinks where really the difficult part was coming up with the ratios. The ingredient list pretty much was self-explanatory. The big thing I had to decide was, did I want to do this like a beer cocktail, like the Allagash Ricky in week 2, where essentially, the main body of the drink is the beer, and then I've added spirits to it, as sort of modifiers to affect the flavor profile of that beer? Or do I want to do it more like a traditional cocktail, and then just sort of float some beer on top, kind of like a New York sour has the float of wine on top of it? Ultimately, I think Guinness has sort of such a strong flavor and heavy body to it that it would kind of overwhelm everything if I did it more like a beer cocktail. So I decided to keep it down, keep it more like a traditional old-fashioned, and then just kind of top it off with a float at the end. One other change is that I am a coward. Originally, this drink was supposed to be a full 2-ounce base of Aquavit, but after experiencing just how strong the flavor profile of this is, I don't think I can in good conscience do a 2-ounce pour of it. However, I remembered that I have a bottle of Irish whiskey on hand, this lovely Tullamore Dew right here. So instead, I'm going to be doing a split base between these two, which should hopefully create actually still a really good drink where we can enjoy all of these sort of, spicy flavors, all of that caraway from the Aquavit without just immediately gagging and spitting this drink. So enough talking. We are going to begin with an ounce of our Irish whiskey. If you are ever in Ireland, I highly recommend going to the Irish Whiskey Museum. It is a fantastic place, and you get to drink whiskey at the end of your tour, so absolutely recommend that. Then an ounce of our Aquavit. Oh, God, oh, it smells so bad. That smells like paint cleaner right there, honestly. That is, it's just, yeah, that caraway is so strong. It is absolutely nose-curdling. All right, and now this is our brown sugar molasses syrup that I just made. The recipe for this will be in the description, and also the recipe for this is going to come with a warning because there's a point in it where you've basically superheated sugar, and then you pour water onto that, which creates a very violent reaction that, if you don't know it's coming, is quite scary to look at. So we are going to add an ounce of this syrup to the drink. This is going to be a very dark drink, that is for sure. And then finally, this part is honestly optional, but I'm going to add 2 dashes of orange bitters, which should hopefully add a little bit of acidity and help lighten this drink up a little bit. And now, because we don't have any sort of citrus or anything, egg white, anything like that in there, we are just going to stir this drink instead of shaking it. So the main thing when we're stirring our drink is just letting everything get sort of nice and mixed together, and then chilled and diluted as well. All right, I think that is nice and chilled. So we are going to strain this into our waiting rocks glass over a nice big cube of ice. Whew, this is a dark, syrupy looking drink. This will be interesting. And then finally, we are going to crack open our Guinness. Please don't explode on me, please don't explode on me, please don't explode on me. Woo! Just pour a little bit on top as a sort of float. That actually kind of looks like an Irish coffee now that I'm thinking about it. Ain't that something? All right. And this right here is our Viking Raid. Let's give it a shot. Okay, predictably enough, the Guinness float is truly floating. It is less dense than that sort of, the syrupy actual bit of our drink. So when you first take a sip, it is just the Guinness float. So I'm gonna stir this up a little bit, see if we can sort of get the two halves becoming friends with each other. Let's see if we can get them acquainted. All right. Number 2. Whoa. Okay, wow, that is a flavor assault. Oh my goodness, that is... Okay, so 1, absolutely the correct move going down from 2 ounces of the Aquavit to 1 ounce, because that caraway still makes its presence known. There is no hiding from it. The brown like, oh my god, so many flavors are so strong in this drink, and it does not care about any of that. It ragdolls all of them and is just like, fuck you, caraway time. God, hold on. Okay, yeah, so I would not recommend this one. I think this one's another miss. It is very interesting because, like, those orange bitters, are so loud, and the Aquavit's so loud, and the brown sugar molasses syrup is so loud, but despite the fact that, like, they feel like they should be harmonious flavors, like, I feel like, that sort of, like, spiciness, the bite of the caraway should play well with the sort of, dark sweetness of that syrup, and then you should have, like, the orange bitters sort of, like, lightening it all up and adding, sort of like a chocolate-covered orange type deal, It's just, they don't do that. Instead of working in harmony, they all just scream simultaneously, and the effect of that is it just feels like someone's punched you in the mouth, and you're just like, as all of these flavors hit simultaneously. Like, there's no evolution, there's no nuance. It is just an absolute uppercut to the jaw. Let's see, am I missing anything here? No, I mean, okay, I don't think it's a fundamentally bad drink. Obviously, I think there's work to be done on it. I think it could be a much better drink, but I don't think the concept or even the execution is fundamentally flawed. I think it really is. This is one of the preferences, I think. Like, me personally, I do not enjoy this drink. I think there probably is someone out there, though, who does love this drink. Or maybe not loves. There's someone out there who does really find this drink interesting and would order it again. I am just not one of those people. No, I do not see myself using any of the rest of this bottle of Aquavit. I cannot get over that. I don't think this drink is immediately perfect if you just remove it and just do a 2-ounce pour of the Irish whiskey, but I think for me personally, at least, it's a lot better. Well, this is a drink that certainly lives up to the name of a Viking Raid because it feels like it's raided my taste buds. But all of that to say, let's now get into the simulation.
Our one and only Ireland game this season. Let's see how both of these teams fare overseas. The Vikings get the ball first and just march cleanly down the field to start. Aaron Jones met at the goal line but just barely gets this ball across to put them up 7-0 to start. The Steelers have a strong drive in response, making it to the end zone, but the Vikings D-line got a sack to back them up. Then on third down, coverage holds long enough for them to get pressure on Rodgers. The Steelers continue doing their best Iowa football impression, being allergic to the end zone and settling for a field goal. First play of the second quarter, 3rd and 15 for the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy absolutely should have been sacked here, but he somehow rolls off the defenders before planting his feet and firing, finding Justin Jefferson for a 30-yard gain and a first down. Later that drive, 2 scrambles from McCarthy sets up the Vikings at the 1-yard line, where Aaron Jones again punches it in for his second TD of the day. These offenses then decided to do a whole bunch of nothing until the very end of the half, when the Vikings marched all the way into Pittsburgh's territory, tacking on a field goal as time expires to make it 17-3 at the half. The Steelers' offense came out strong in the second half, capping off their opening drive with Jaylen Warren cutting the run back and taking it 16 yards untouched into the end zone. After forcing a Vikings 3-and-out, the Steelers once again find themselves in the red zone, and this time, it's Aaron Rodgers who runs it in from 12 yards, taking a shot as he crosses the goal line to tie the game at 17. On the last play of the third quarter, JJ drops back, firing a deep bomb to Justin Jefferson, who shows why he's really that guy, mossing his defender to haul in a huge 64-yard catch on 3rd and long, flipping the field. Later on in the drive, 3rd down, Thielen gets the ball on the in route, but a good tackle stops them short. Minnesota hits the field goal to retake the lead. Their lead doesn't last long, though. With 1 minute left in the game, Steelers are on the 1-yard line, and they use tight end Connor Hayward as a fullback, letting him punch it in for the go-ahead touchdown. Now, despite getting the ball back with 1 minute and 3 timeouts left, the Madden AI lets the clock run all the way down to 10 seconds before calling their first one. As a result, they find themselves with 1 second left, needing a touchdown from the 23-yard line. JJ fires a bullet to Thielen, but it's broken up by Ramsey. Steelers win in Ireland 24-20. On the one hand, it's a lot better than the 13-6 game that we just had. On the other hand, 0 combined passing touchdowns? I feel bad for all the Irish fans. Looking at the passing stats, we can see 2 examples of pure mid. Honestly, mid might actually be a little bit generous for Rodgers. This was a below average performance for him. But yeah, honestly, not much to really analyze here. 64-66 completion percentages is right around league average, and neither of these quarterbacks really did anything, good or bad. 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, just meh. The same cannot be said for the running backs, both of whom had really strong games. 79 yards for Jaylen Warren would be his best game since November of 2023, definitely benefiting from no longer having to share the backfield with Najee Harris. Aaron Jones didn't have as good of a game, especially by his standards, but considering how much Madden tends to deflate running backs, 2 touchdowns and 64 yards is a really good game. It also seems like Aaron Rodgers has found the fountain of youth, rushing 3 times for 20 yards and a touchdown. And then finally, we have our lovely Connor Hayward, 0-yard rushing touchdown. What a statistical wonder. Receiving-wise, Justin Jefferson had a Justin Jefferson game, though even for him, going over 150 yards isn't super common. He went all of last season without having one of those games. Also, Steelers showing lots of love to their tight end, with Pat Freiermuth hauling in 5 catches for 76 yards, which is actually not unprecedented for him. Beyond that, there's just really not a lot to break down in terms of receiving stats. Obviously, passing stats and receiving stats are very closely intertwined, and because the passing stats were so mid and they did such a great job of spreading the ball around, there's really nothing that jumps out on the stat sheet. So as a result, let's move right along to the Monte Carlo sim, where we somehow get even more meh quarterback performances. A really funny quirk that I don't think we've ever seen before in the sim is both of these teams' running back 2s racking up more rushing yards than their lead running back. On the receiving side of things, Justin Jefferson continues to dominate the stat sheet, with the ball being spread around pretty evenly to the rest of the targets on both teams. Score-wise, the Monte Carlo sim sees this as a pretty perfectly balanced defensive game, settling on 14-14 as the most likely outcome. In fact, this game is so perfectly balanced that averaging all 10,000 scores for this game still results in a final predicted score of 14-14. Do you agree with the simulations, or do you envision a different future? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments. As a reminder, our drink for this matchup is the frankly disgusting Viking Raid. Please do not make it, but if you do for some reason, I'd love to hear about it. Also, I'd love to hear your suggestions for what drink should be your team's representative. Stay curious, stay thirsty, and I'll see you in the next one.